Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Queue, and in this video we're going to take a look at the rather rare Tier 5 American premium fighter, the Bell XP-77. And this video is by audience request. So here's the Bell XP-77 on the tarmac outside my hangar, and a little bit of history first. There were 3 aircraft given out as rewards to people who tested the game. Those who were in the alpha test got the Tier 5 German Heavy, the ME-210. Those in the closed beta got this aircraft, the XP-77, and those in the open beta got the Tier 2 Pegasus Ground Attacker. And that was back in 2013. And I believe, I could be wrong, but the World of Warplanes team said that these aircraft would never be made available to anybody else other than those testers. Well, that was true up until the end of March 2019, when suddenly in my premium shop, and many others I guess, there was an available for you offer. A legendary bundle, and the contents of that bundle were the 3 test aircraft. Well, I suppose most of the testers had long departed the game by then, but any who were remaining might very well have been a bit peeved by that. Nonetheless, I've got all 3 of the reward aircraft that were originally given to the testers. Let's see how we've got this one set up. And it's specialised. So what I've done is I've put on a gun sight, I've put on a lightweight airframe for manoeuvrability, polished skin for speed, and a lightweight power unit for more manoeuvrability. A single seat fighter, so fire extinguisher, pneumatic control assist to aid me in any dogfights with particularly the same aircraft. Perhaps Spitfires, maybe Japanese aircraft that aren't specialised. Emergency control system to repair damaged wing or tail. Engine cooling for extra boost, that's important in this particular case, and universal ammunition. Of course, they never use gold. So what we'll do is we'll go into the statistics next, but if you really can't bear to look at a spreadsheet, use the link below the video to skip ahead. I'll try and summarise very quickly, and that is that the gun armament is pretty indifferent, in fact verging on anemic. This is a fragile aircraft, very few hit points. Compared to some of the other fighters. Airspeed is sort of middling. It's not special, but it's not as bad as some of the term fighters, especially the Japanese ones. Pretty good manoeuvrability, but not as good as the term fighters, but probably better than most of the high altitude fighters. And the altitude performance, it's a sort of an odd one. It's sort of in between the turn fighters, such as the Japanese ones, and the high altitude fighters. So this aircraft has got a sort of an odd niche, and we'll explain that in a moment, unless you happen to skip ahead using the links below to go to another section of the video. Anyway, time to have a look at the numbers. So here are the numbers for all of the Tier 5 fighter aircraft, and there are a lot of them, 22. So an exhaustive analysis, aircraft by aircraft, is clearly not what we're going to do here. We're just going to try and put out the salient points. The Bell XP-77 is in column C and D. All of the other aircraft at Tier 5 occupy 2 columns each, off to the right. Down the left, we have the most important characteristics that you can see in the Hangar UI. Configuration is stock in every case. Ordnance, well, that doesn't apply to fighters, so mounted means nothing here. All of the equipment was taken off. Pilot was sent back to the barracks, and it's all top modules. Green is best in class, light blue, second best in class, purple, third best in class, gold indicates a premium aircraft. Now here's something you haven't seen before. If I just scroll up, I've done the same thing again for all of the aircraft, but the logic in reversed. Bright red, worst in class, middling red, second worst in class, and third worst in class is the lightest red of all. We'll come back to that in a moment. The statistics are in the body here, and straight away we can see that apart from the oddity of fire resistance, the Bell XP-77 is not best at anything in this class. And fire resistance doesn't really account, because most of the aircraft have 60 as fire resistance anyway. Just quickly go down, we can see that in fact the survivability, which I've already trailed as being poor, is in fact the second worst in class, and some poor figures there, only 180 hit points. So this is quite a fragile aircraft, bear that in mind. When it comes to gun armament, this is very far from being the best aircraft. Some of the high altitude fighters, the BF-109E, which is right next to it, the Spitfire 1, and particularly the A6M3 Experimental, have all got much higher DPS than this. I wouldn't even say this is a middling figure. It's sort of like lower half, below average. This is not a particularly hard-hitting aircraft. We've already talked about survivability as being pretty much amongst the worst in class. The airspeed is sort of middling. It's not as fast as any of the high-altitude fighters. It's faster than many of the out-and-out turn fighters, the Japanese ones, the Venom in particular. This is around the kind of speed that a Spitfire would do. Manoeuvrability, pretty much the same story. The high-altitude fighters, on the whole, it has a manoeuvrability advantage over. However, against the out-and-out turn fighters, it's less mobile. And finally, altitude performance, and again, it's a similar sort of story. It's the kind of altitude performance that is better than the out-and-out turn fighters, but it's not as good as the high-altitude fighters. And if we just quickly drop down and look at the worst in class, we can see that the boost duration here is the same as the worst of the turn fighters. So you really do need that engine cooling to try and get some usable boost out of it. So, for instance, if I were fighting a Bf-109E or perhaps a MiG-3, I'm looking for them to drop down into my comfortable altitudes or at the top end of my altitude, and then I can try and use my manoeuvrability against them. Conversely, if I'm trying to fight a turn fighter, such as the Japanese fighters, which we can see over here, I'll just pop them right next to the Bell XP. We want to be above them if we can. You can see the altitude performance is much better, a bit better for the XP-77, and diving on them and trying to damage them as much as possible before boosting away. And as for the Spitfire, you may be able to take on unspecialized Spitfires by using the slightly better roll rate and going up and down rather than round and round. But as you can see, this is a middling sort of aircraft, and you have to very much judge what you're going to do with each engagement by understanding what it is your opponents can do. If you just fly this one blind into an aircraft, an enemy aircraft, you may very well find you're playing to its strengths and not your own. So I'm afraid here, to get the best out of the XP-77, you need to know your opponents. In practice, what I've found I end up doing is flying the XP-77 high in the yellow altitudes in order to be close enough to the high altitude fighters, perhaps catching them as they're coming down and attacking other aircraft. And by being in the yellow altitudes, I can also be far enough above the out-and-out turn fighters to be able to dive in them without them being aware I'm about to deliver an attack. Anyway, I think that's plenty on the numbers. Let's go and look at a battle and see what this aircraft can do. This is the Scorching Sands map. It's the Edge of the World variant, a 5-sector map with the sectors laid out in the 5 spots of a die configuration. Strategically, the 2 military bases are the most important to the map because they help, with their rocket strikes, flip other sectors to your side. There are 2 forward airstrips which are also peripheral. You can spawn there, which, if you need to get to the military base furthest away from your original spawn, may be helpful. The garrison only produces the standard 3 resources every 5 seconds, but tactically it's important because it provides easy access to all the other sectors. If we look at the order of battle, it's just me, top tier in my XP-77, and a gentleman in the P-38F Heavy. Let's see how we both get on against each other and all the bots. So, unsurprisingly, I'm going to head straight towards the nearest military base because that's the most important sector on the map, as far as I'm concerned. Currently, throughout the battle, we'll probably be trying to head to the other military base if we get the opportunity. Straight away I'm into the yellow altitudes, and if you watch the spreadsheet section you won't be surprised by that. If you didn't watch the spreadsheet section, the way I fly this aircraft generally means that I would be in this sort of altitude location, because it gives me an advantage against turn fighters, which fly at lower altitudes generally, and allows me to compete with high altitude fighters. And as you can see, I'm managing the 20mm cannon quite carefully, 3-second bursts, otherwise the cannon overheats and your DPS, which is already pretty low, goes through the floor. And I've done as much as I can here by taking out the 2 heavies. swing round to see if there are any enemy aircraft coming in, and immediately spot a bomber. Now, this aircraft isn't the greatest at taking out bombers, but it is a tier 5 bomber, and it will help flip the base, if indeed not actually flip the base to us, so I take it on. Unfortunately, the bot rear gunner is not up to much. It would be a different story if it was a human, I'm sure. And we have the military base. And if you're wondering why I'm flying towards the side of the map, just at this point I had to break off and deal with a cat doing cat things. You've heard that before in some of my other videos. And now I swing back and I start looking for my next objective. It takes a little while. Carefully assessing the two enemy aircraft, and indeed the air defence aircraft that are in sight. And pick off the enemy aircraft which was low health, and then swing around and take on the defence aircraft. And now we're attacking the middle sector, we should commit to it. I size up the XP-44 and the aircraft he's attacking as my next target. My team flips the base. The air defence heavy blows up as a consequence, which leaves me to concentrate on the XP-44. Time to do a bit of housekeeping, clear out the sector. The I-83, which is a premium aircraft, obviously a bot aircraft in this case, takes severe damage even from this low DPS aircraft. And I swing back to the less manoeuvrable of the two aircraft, the F4F, and that was quite deliberate. I took on the turn fighter first, badly damaged it, and then turned to take the less manoeuvrable aircraft. And I notice we still haven't secured the airfield that I was close to going to a minute or so ago, so I go back to see if I can secure it now. When you're attacking a sector which is contested, that is still neutral, the enemy aircraft are worth more to you in terms of flipping it than the air defence aircraft, and that's why I took out the enemy aircraft. That was at the cost of losing my pilot to one of the air defence aircraft. Fortunately, I'm near enough to them to still be able to take them out. And the mobility of this aircraft is certainly sufficient to deal with air defence aircraft, and in destroying that one, I get the Akamatsu medal already, and I flip the base to my team. Now, the F4F has had time to get across and present himself for shooting down a second time. And I dispose of him, since he invited me to do so. Now, this is not a repair base, so on this occasion there's no point in hanging around. I head towards the highly threatened middle, and then realise I have two aircraft coming towards me. They will almost certainly engage if I don't engage them. Fortunately, the very fragile KI-43-1 goes on fire, and then I boost upwards to get away from it. And I do a hammerhead turn and come back down for it. The fire has done a lot of damage to it. As you can see, it was almost destroyed anyway, and I was able to finish it off very quickly. Got to watch out for the KI-43-1, maybe a tier 4 aircraft, but it's got very nasty cannons. Again, I pushed the aircraft into the yellow altitudes rather. And I think this is the second time I've shot at this bomber. And I'm on the point of stalling. Can I finish it before I do stall? Yes, I can. Just. Continue to look for targets of opportunity. Now, it's worth mentioning that the bots have largely left me alone because I've been a long way away from them and they've been busy with other things. If there had been a human player in the BF-109E, for instance, this battle would have been quite a lot different. Bear that in mind. This is a very favourable set of circumstances for the XP-77. You should really be looking to do about 10,000 personal points on average if you're playing the aircraft well. Able to do significant damage to the Tier 4 ground attacker. Finish it off, and as I'm down low, I can start piling into the Bisha 2. That's going to take a lot longer because that has a high hit point pool comparatively. Give myself some distance so I can get some good bursts at it. The Winged Legend goes through. Come back for another pass or two at the Bisha. It's probably going to be two, I should suspect. I would have liked to finish it off a bit more quickly because the enemy missile base is firing at this sector. And I get it before another rocket lands, which means it's going to take a little bit longer for the missile base to take it. I managed to kill another aircraft very quickly. Find the P-38 player. He ought to speed away but makes the mistake of turning for the heavy. He's already being attacked by myself and another aircraft. That's the ace. What a quick ace. Didn't think I'd been that busy, quite honestly. And that's put him out of the game. That gives me an even greater advantage, although we have now lost this sector. Dispose of the F-2A for the Koshidub medal. Swing round to see if I can start shooting aircraft to try and flip this sector back. Although we're so far ahead, it won't matter if we don't. And the bot KI-43 is so intent on chasing the multi-roll that I'm able to fly up to it, almost glide up to it, wait until I'm at the perfect distance, and then shoot it down very quickly. Now the air defence aircraft are spawned. Fortunately, they're not shooting at me. They're not facing me. That could have been a thing, but not in this case. And the first of those goes down, just in time to avoid the air defence fighter that was trying to size me up. I go up and down rather than around and round. Nasty artifact there in the video. Hope that didn't give you vertigo. I end up on the tail of one of the air defence fighters. And unfortunately, right at the end of the game, I get sniped by the enemy C6 bot. However, it's a large haul of medals and 19,460 personal points. I apologise for the sound quality coming up in the battle review. That was recorded under duress, and it's just as well I did it, otherwise I would have lost the recording when I had a disconnection from the game a little bit later. Anyway, battle review next. So, let's take a look at the outcome of this battle, and as we can see from the middle, it's a 5 chevron battle, or grade 1 fighter, the best result possible. 179,851 credits or silver if you prefer, of which nearly 60,000 came from the premium account bonus. If we drop into the message box, we can see that there were 925 credits expended on repairs. I lost the aircraft right at the end of that battle, of course. 2,963 XP with bonuses, 148 free experience, again with the premium account bonus, and a rather handsome 7 tokens for first medals of the day, the Campbells, Akamatsu, the Marseille, Koshidub, Winged Legend, Hero of the Sky, and the Ace. We go to the Personal Score tab, we can see that all of the class-specific missions were complete, hence the 5 chevrons. 19,460 personal points. Pretty good, but don't expect to do that all the time in this aircraft. 2 sectors captured, 25 aerial targets destroyed, 4,398 damage to aerial targets with 22 critical hits, which is reasonable, given that the armament is fairly light. Of course, lost the aircraft once right at the end of the game. 860 capture points, of which 400 for defending and 460 for attacking. Switching to the team score tab, we can see that was enough for first place. To be fair, this is an all-bot battle, apart from one human player on the enemy team. 19,460 points, this is enough for first along with 5 chevrons. And a reasonable effort from the gentleman in the P-38F. You shouldn't be unhappy with that. That concludes my look at the Bell XP-77, a rather rare Tier 5 American premium fighter. It's handicapped by low DPS and fragility, which means taking on high hit point pool aircraft such as heavies, bombers, or ground attackers can be risky, but I find by flying it in the yellow altitudes I can compete with high energy fighters and also swoop down on turn fighters. Well, I hope you found that useful and enjoyable, and that if you did, you'll come back and see my future content. But until then, this is the Noble Q signing out.